This module will focus specifically on vocabulary to ensure a shared understanding of key components of vocabulary instruction before digging into the LAPG. As always, it's important to provide a reminder of the overall purpose of the LAPG. It is to help your team problem solve toward more effective and efficient multi-tiered support systems in literacy for all students. Tier 1 is the foundation of this work, so a great deal of time is spent here first. A reminder that these slides can be revised to work for you. Consider where to spend more or less time, depending upon your team's needs. Vocabulary is among the most critical factors to teach to help build comprehension. Oral vocabulary building in the younger grades prepares students to read more complex text as they are able to decode it. 50 to 60% of the difference in reading comprehension in older grades is due to vocabulary knowledge differences. The two sentences give an example of the challenge of only teaching students to try to figure out words from context. The first sentence is common and provides an example of when context is unhelpful. So when we consider vocabulary, we need to think strategically about which words need to be taught explicitly to understand context, and also teaching strategies for determining words, such as morphology, context cues, and then finding a resource, a teacher, friend, dictionary, or thesaurus to help us figure it out if our other options have not worked. Beck and colleagues created tiers of vocabulary to help teachers identify and focus on Tier 2 words that are the most critical for understanding current concepts and most likely to show up in academic work across content areas. You can see here the different word types. Tier 1, basic words such as home and finger. Tier 2, more academic words such as Adobe for another variation on home and digit for a variation on finger. And Tier 3, content-specific words like mitochondria. Teachers should be providing explicit vocabulary instruction that focuses student attention on the word, including important aspects of the word, such as phonology, orthography, morphology, how the word is used in relation to other words, and grammar structure. Etymology refers to word origin, and this can be an important part of understanding word meaning and spelling as well. Why intensive vocabulary instruction? Everyone benefits from explicit vocabulary instruction. Some students need more instruction, students with a smaller vocabulary or English learners, for example, who need accelerated vocabulary learning since they are learning a new language. Keep in mind that content area texts include very sophisticated vocabulary and that all standardized performance tests require wide-range vocabulary knowledge. Focusing on vocabulary is critical to comprehension. As has been mentioned, there is vocabulary that should be explicitly taught and indirect vocabulary instruction of strategies to figure out an unknown word. Both of these are important. This graphic outlines less effective and more effective strategies. On the left are necessary but not sufficient strategies. On the right are effective strategies. To the left side first. Waiting for an incidental moment when vocabulary instruction comes up. This doesn't mean you don't address these moments of incidental teaching when they arise, but this should not be your only plan for vocabulary instruction. 2, only using written context to figure out words. As was shown with the sentences using spurious on the previous slide, this strategy does not work more than it works. Again, it is one strategy to teach, but cannot be the only strategy. Finally, dictionaries are not always helpful tools. They often give a very concise definition to save space, and also sometimes use the word in the definition. Consider a thesaurus as a tool as well. On the right side of this balance, 1, fostering word consciousness. This refers to creating an environment of curiosity around words and word learning, pointing out interesting words, making new vocabulary acquisition, and exciting activity, both in and outside the classroom. 2, teaching independent word learning strategies refers to the teaching of morphology, context clues, and dictionary or thesaurus skill use to teach students independent ways to access new word meaning. Again, it's a good strategy, it just can't be the only strategy. 3, direct teaching. As mentioned, the most important words, often Tier 2 from the Beck work, should be explicitly taught and practiced. And finally, having students engage in wide reading of text builds additional word knowledge. When we say explicitly teach vocabulary instruction, what does this look like? Here is one instructional routine that meets the parameters of explicit instruction. First, choosing the critical words, and then walking through these steps to teach them. Step 1, introduce the word's pronunciation and orthographic features, spelling features, showing the word visually and talking about it verbally. Step 2, introduce the word's meaning. Step 3, illustrate the word with examples and non-examples to really help students understand it. And step 4, check students' understanding. As a summary, to wrap up shared understanding of vocabulary, front-load this teaching before students read independently to give them the vocabulary background needed to make meaning of text. Teach explicitly, ensuring shared understanding of word meaning, and then practice and repeat frequently these words in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. There is a 4-14-40 rule in vocabulary. Some students will need approximately 4 opportunities to use a word, reading, writing, listening, or speaking, to master it in their lexicon. Others will need 14 opportunities for practice and exposure, and some students will need 40 opportunities, 4-14-40. So we need to provide a range of activities to allow practice across these differentiated needs. Use grade level Tier 2 vocabulary, but explain it using student-friendly definitions. Finally, limit words to 2 to 3 per day or 10 to 12 per unit of study. Think about these different components as you evaluate your Tier 1 vocabulary content and instruction on the LAPG. Now it's time to dig into your curriculum and begin evaluating the vocabulary section using the LAPG.